Hello, welcome to Breakfast Central on Wednesdays, the midweek edition. I can't believe we're halfway done with the week already. So fast. I mean, it's bittersweet. I'm excited the weekend is approaching, but at the same time, I'm kind of sad that I won't get to do this with Nigerians and all our viewers across the world. And of course, I won't get to spend time with you beautiful people. Wow, you're kind of matching. Very
You know
bright.
the funny thing?
You guys are wearing primary colors. Are you in primary school?
I don't know if
Which
you
one
got
is
the
primary
memo,
colors?
but I'm aware. I'm aware
Yes.
that while we were planning, I think you were busy, trying to take that last bite on this.
I'm not happy with the...
I don't know how clueless you people can be with colors, because these two colors are not related. This is burnt orange and this is pink.
From a scientific perspective, they're related. But
I
we'll
won
get to
burnt
that
orange yesterday.
some
To be
other
honest, you
day.
should have won burnt orange yesterday.
I planned
So between
it.
Ashwebi on
A
TV.
cuckoo bird told me Olive is about to wear the same
So
color
just
you're about to wear.
and
So I
then
said,
you
no, let's
switch
switch
up.
to green.
I'll catch
The
you
land
next
is
time.
green in Army.
Okay.
You're welcome to Breakfast Central. I am Benga Aborowa. I leave you in the good hands of my co-anchors.
Thank you very much, distinguished colleague. I am Honorable Olive. I said I'm calling myself Honorable. I see it's prophetic.
I mean, you're honorable.
Honorable indeed, right?
You're a woman of honor.
Thank
and
you.
valor.
Thank you so much.
And timber and caliber.
Thank you so much for these kind words that you have graced me. Well, I don't know if I'm the one that deserves all this honor you're giving. Much later this morning, we're bringing the governor of Borno State. He is the Honorable and the Excellency here, who is doing great work, actually, with visiting communities that have been unfortunately exploited by the acts of terrorism, people who have to live with the current realities. Joe and I were talking about this off camera, and I was saying how hard it must be to be a governor in the Northeast, because they're faced with a different set of challenges. Here in Lagos, at the most, they will drag the governor Sanwo-Olu and say, hey, Lagos is smelling, there's photo. I feel like if you could give that kind of problem to the people of Borno State, they will wholeheartedly take that.
Exactly.
Just knowing that they can go to bed and wake up and not have to deal with the reality of not knowing what the next day will be like.
People, the IDPs
living in the camps, it's just really a difficult place. And I'm hoping that much later today, when we get to speak with Professor Babagana Zulum, we can get to explore what the current realities are in Borno State, as well as what the hopes are, what the expectations are, and the way in which they expect support from the federal government, as well as what the state government is doing as well. I am Olive Emodi, and you're welcome to the show.
Well, it's good to be here again, and like my,
distinguished
distinguished colleagues have said, I like to stand on
existing protocol.
You should leave this bad behavior this week, this standing on existing
But
protocol.
I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for always making Breakfast Central your go-to or your starting, motto for the day, because it's like everyone wakes up and then they join us. I mean, I did see a comment online, and someone was indeed talking about how well they watched the program. I also met someone recently, and I mean, it wasn't so.
Evangelist of New Central TV.
They're starting their day right.
Yeah, starting it right, and it feels really good to know that. It feels really good to know that you're doing that. But in our usual tradition, we will start off with the wake-up conversations. Just to stretch you a bit, wake-up conversations is usually to enlighten you on what happened, especially just a fortnight, or better still, just few hours behind, in case you missed out on it. We're going to start off first with one of the very interesting conversations or wake-up conversations. Ever since he decided to leave the APC, well, he has stopped at nothing but to ensure that he shares his views. Call it negative, but that's exactly what you may say. For him, it's not. We're talking about Nasir El-Rufai. Of course, he has indeed come up again to give knocks to the judiciary for being silent on President Tinubu's administration. Now, he did go ahead to talk about how the judiciary is all of a sudden silent, especially on issues that bother on the law and the rule of law of the land. He said this at a symposium. Hopefully, we do have that footage. We'd like to play it so you can get to take a look at it. And then when we come back, we'd like you to also share your thoughts with us on social media space. Tell us what you think about his comments. Do you think there's an iota of truth there? Well, let's get to find out in our very first story on Wake Up Conversation.
Or should we look at the message and ignore the messenger?
Another angle.
Yes, and is the judiciary talking through its pronouncements through the Chief Justice of Nigeria? But I believe we should hear it from the horse's mouth. So they won't say we put things in his mouth. Yeah.
Once upon a time, ordinary citizens, told us the homes of judges, were so scared of judges. I remember when we were sent to Justice Ben's home to deliver a message, make sure that he's not at home before we go, because everyone was so scared of the kind, nice, and decent Justice Muhammad Bello. May his soul rest in peace as well. But not any longer. Now judges are abused and maligned with almost reckless abandon and with no consequences. They are physically and mentally assaulted, sometimes roundly disrespected by the ordinary citizen. How indeed the mighty fall. But we must also resist simplistic narratives. Practically, all judicial officers work under immense pressure.
Well, there you go. He said he remembers way back sometime, everyone was so scared, of the judiciary. And I kind of like tied his statement to what we saw in the papers yesterday, where the Chief Justice of Nigeria said that, she came out again. She spoke 2 weeks ago, and then she spoke just yesterday again, where she said that the processes has got to do with judiciary is too much, it's too slow and so on. And I remember our guest who came on air and said,
whose responsibility
is it to ensure that you clean house?
Exactly.
So, that's another one.
So from what we could deduce from this is the judiciary, like most sectors in Nigeria, does need immediate reform, like the police, the judiciary, the criminal justice system, and needs a serious house cleaning. And when you begin to look back and think your past is better than your present, then it shows you how dysfunctional the situation is. But let's talk about Malam Nasir El-Rufai. I wonder if he was part of this government, he would be saying this, or maybe he'll give his criticism at the Council of State meeting and private. Who knows? Because when we saw him and President Tinubu with the other current ministers at Chatham House just before the elections, we thought, no, it's a slam dunk. It's definitely going to be a part of the administration. Because I remember President Tinubu pointing to him and say, Nasir, answer this question.
Chatham House, eh?
Yes, saying one of his qualities is in delegating duties to people. So you asked me a question, why? I wish I could do that when I was writing JAM. Delegate, please. Joe, answer question 5.
Okay.
Olive,
but I'm going to go back
4.
to what we had said again. Whilst when people might have their thoughts about Malam Nasir El-Rufai, we can't again take away from the message. You can't throw away the message because of the messenger, because there is sense to what is being said. The judiciary, has been for years regarded as, that last hope of the common man, regarded as a noble profession, a noble, career path. They're the third arm of government, and they're supposed to be accorded a certain level of reverence that we unfortunately do not see these days. I know that these are sort of the conversations that come up when the Nigerian Bar Association have their conferences every year, and
have they refunded the money?
I don't think that that's going to happen. So far, last I checked, they hadn't refunded it. So I certainly don't think that that's a conversation to have, especially in the past year, for example, in the past legal year. The judiciary has come under a lot of fire, especially because of how they've seen them hobnobbing with the executive arm of government. And it's not supposed to be so, because they ought to have
some functions.
Exactly. They ought to have acted as, the independent bodies where you can say of a truth there is checks and balances. When former Governor Nyesom Wike would do certain things for the judiciary, those will be criticized, because it's like, if you want to do it, there are channels to go through. There's no need to bring these judges and then say you are doing groundbreaking, because tomorrow you go to their court and you get a judgment, and people are looking at it with side eye, because they don't trust
it doesn't work
that
well.
there isn't conflict of interest. Right? It's why certain organizations have a no-tip policy, and they'll say, no, you're not collecting any tip, because they want to be able to guarantee.
Or you declare it. You have to declare.
Exactly, independence and authenticity of the work that they're doing. But I'm certain that this would we'll go back to these conversations, and the judiciary again will still keep coming under the spotlight. And I know that this is a cause of concern for the Nigerian Bar Association that will be analyzed when the conference happens. But let's look at what happened in Ibadan. A trigger-happy police officer has unfortunately killed a 14-year-old boy. There was a press release on X as to what exactly happened and how they had said that the Oyo State Police Command did say that they gave the press release, said a fatal traffic enforcement incident involving OYTMA and police personnel. They regret to inform the general public of a tragic incident that occurred during a joint traffic enforcement operation with the Oyo State Traffic Management Authority, OYTMA, which led to the unfortunate death of Kehinde Alade, 14-year-old male, at approximately 7:45 on the 20th, that was yesterday, along the airport roundabout, Alakia Adelubi Airport Road, Egbeda local government area. An enforcement team comprising OYTMA officers and personnel of the Oyo State Police Command attempted to stop a black Honda Accord Lagos registration number FST 639JJ, driven by one Odunayo Alade, who is a male. He's the father of the deceased young male who was found to be driving against traffic one way. And there were several other statements that were made in the press release regarding this as well. And there was, of course, a video to match it. This was the video of them allegedly trying to apprehend the deceased 14-year-old, the deceased father, for following one way. But then again, the question is, does this solve or answer for why a 14-year-old boy was killed?
How do you enforce a traffic offense? By shooting. I mean, shooting is lethal. You shoot to kill or to, disarm, not to enforce.
Exactly. They
traffic.
said that, of
you
course,
have it on video, you could track that there are ways you can get this man rather than the unfortunate incident.
So what they're saying, I mean, the remaining parts of the press statements talked about how, in order to prevent further damage, they put barricades, but that, as you can see, the driver navigated through these barricades in an attempt to escape them. And so they suspected criminal activity or a case of abduction, and then there was a police chase that ensued. And in an attempt to immobilize the vehicle, a police corporal discharged firearm aimed at the tires. Tragically, the bullet missed and hit Kehinde, the 14-year-old boy, in the rear seat behind the driver. He was immediately rushed to University College Hospital, where he was confirmed dead on arrival. So, again, there are many issues that come to mind regarding this scenario. Whilst the police can argue that they have a valid reason, yes, that they have a valid reason for pursuing this man because they assumed that there was an attempted abduction because of the way in which the man was driving. How do you aim for the tire and get to the back seat?
He's not a good marksman.
So he then asked
And
again,
he wasn't even meant to shoot in that situation.
How much training are they given in the handling of firearms? How much training are our police officers given when it comes to handling of firearms? This is not the first time that we've seen the anger, public anger and outcry against the police, inappropriate use of force. Was the use of force commensurate to the action that occurred? You thought he was escaping. Okay, continue with the manhunt. Call for support. When we watch other police officers, the way we see them handle situations like this.
Chase, even with helicopters.
Yeah,
they
the way we do have helicopters.
end up killing people.
Anyway.
They don't end up killing people. It's really, really sad. And life has no substitute, unfortunately.
There's nothing nothing will amount to justice in that scenario because justice will not raise this boy, the 14-year-old boy that has died. He's lost his life. So is there a protocol, which is what we talked about at the time when we had David Mundane join us? What are the rules of engagement? At what point should you let out, at what point should you use your firearm?
Yeah.
Is that the fact that the father was trying to escape? And we know in typical Nigerian fashion, the reason why a number of people want to escape is because when you're being accosted, and that's not a good enough excuse, but when you're being accosted by, the traffic enforcement agents or the police force, there are fears of you being thoroughly extorted. So many of them want to avoid this, and they think to themselves, better for me to spoil my bumper than for my car to end there, because with bumper I can use maybe like 80,000.
They hardly ever correct you and say, you're not meant to do it. Next time, don't do this. Go away.
No.
Well, the truth is,
one time.
No matter how you look at the case, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. Don't forget that currently, Nigeria is bedeviled with insecurity issues.
Yes.
I mean, while looking through that video, and then I saw the boy lying down helpless, I kept thinking, so we may, put the blame, may decide to put the blame on the police, but there's also a case of equally ensuring that the father is also to be blamed. Now, I'm sure when they get to the court of jurisdiction, there's going to be a whole lot that the father may end up also being jailed, but let's leave that aside.
There might be cases of negligence to an extent, because first of all,
apart from negligence, you've broken the, you drove one way. There's an attempted case. He would have killed one of the officers. Look at the way he drove. But you see, when we start to list all of these issues, it's good that we also let Nigerians know that, see, it's not a one-way or one-sided case, because we did hear that there was about to be a protest yesterday. People were about to come up and head to hit the streets.
They took the boys' cops to the governor's office.
Of course,
protest, yeah.
And the governor came out. I mean, he said the whole state is mourning. But like I said, from looking at it holistically, possibly using a bird eyes view, if you choose to call it that way, you see that it's not just an easy case to handle. One, the corporal who did use the gun is also going to have to answer for taking a life. Were there other options? Were there alternative options? I also asked myself, now this man was seen driving one way. Back to what I had started saying initially, there are serious cases of insecurity. I looked at the car. He's driving a tinted vehicle. So you can't really tell who is inside of that car. And that is no excuse, by the way, for the police to have shot at the car. But then again, they said he was trying to immobilize the car by shooting at the tire, and some way, somehow, the bullet didn't meet the tire, but met the boy at the back seat. We do have videos, but they are gory for you to see.
Another excuse that the father might present is that they were on their way to write. He was on his way to write his wife's exam.
Okay, should you take one way?
No, you shouldn't, right? But a life has been lost. So see,
and then
it is better that 100 guilty men go scot-free than for one innocent man to be affected. An innocent person here, in the case of this child, his life has been taken.
And then this happened in Oyo. So, I mean, there are multiple factors and layers.
That's what I'm saying.
Like Joe said.
You can't just
but
paint
at
it
the end of the day, we are having this discussion because an untrained policeman decided to use his firearm in a situation where he shouldn't have. There are spikes. There are spikes.
Yes, there's so many things you could have used.
Or your state government has this anti-one-way things on the road that immobilize cars.
Let's not go too far. If you go to Ikeja here and you're going one way, the moment you get there, they've just put that thing across your tire. They're waiting for you in the front because the tire will be deflated.
They went shooting from that car and you were acting in self-defense. You don't have a right to.
I mean, that's why we've said.
Was it necessary?
That's what we said.
So everybody has their own fair share of blame.
Would have to answer.
The father has.
The father would have to answer. Yes. The police officer who shot would have to answer. In short, the traffic wardens who were equally there,
they would have to answer. Oyo State Traffic Management
They would have to answer. But the sad situation with all of this is that
even as they are answering, we must mention was the action that has taken the life of this 14-year-old boy. Couldn't match up to the action of trying to escape that vehicle. I think that's another thing we should look at. You see, it's not my position to look at.
Any of our positions.
He shouldn't have used his firearm. He should not. But then again, he should not, knowing that the police already, first of all, have that quote unquote interesting reputation. He should not have used that.
We agree. One thing we can do as well, I mean, is not to really, like they said yesterday, not to heat up the polity or let people take laws into their hands, but to be truthful and honest. Like I would say it again this morning. This case, this situation that we see is more than meets the eye. Hopefully, they would be able to bring justice, and justice would require that.
I don't think they can ever.
Yeah, I mean, justice may not be what you think is justice or what I think is justice, but justice could be that. Okay, what if justice tilts the other way? That, in as much as the sad truth that the boy is dead, but the father also has to be prosecuted for taking one way.
There is no justice, as far as I'm concerned. You know, I imagine being a parent,
so it may not be balanced,
and being in that kind of situation. Nothing will speak justice. That boy's life has just been wasted. That is a future, a young Nigerian life, a leader of tomorrow.
Another trigger happy. Another one. Policeman.
Very careless police officer. It should have been handled differently. he should have been handled. Call your other colleagues. Tell them, oh, they are
Just
coming on
radio
so
them.
road.
That's
Go and
so
block
the
them on
options
so
are
road.
much.
There's so many
You
options.
could radio them.
Shooting is a very last straw when all else has failed, and when you see that there is an imminent
or you're
threat
acting in self-defense to your
to
life.
your life, or you can see that they've obviously threatened the life of, I don't know.
You see,
Let's move on to
like
the
I
next
said,
story.
there's more than what meets the eye. In
You
this
remember how
situation. It looks pretty
that
simple
lawyer
to
was
dissect,
shot
but it's
at
painful.
Aja?
Yeah,
I think it was like 2 Christmases ago. I can't remember which of them.
You're
now.
right.
Again,
That's
was the
about,
firearm necessary?
2023. That situation as well. I mean,
It's
bottom
too sad
line.
a story.
You see,
Too sad.
I was lost for words when I tried to look at the story holistically from different angles, different points, and like I would say, and try to wrap it up for me. My own is, I hope the case is not swept under the carpet, and we do hope that just as the Oyo State Police has promised to, tell Nigerians, inundate us with the latest, I hope they do so regularly and immediately. I'm happy that the governor has stepped in, and he has said that he needs answers immediately. So the police is doing more. But let's just hope for the best. Bottom line, let's hope for it's painful. It's very painful because lives were lost. The exam you were rushing to write, you did not end up writing it. And I'm thinking from a father's perspective. If you look into the mirror, you would ask yourself questions. Why didn't I just arrive there late and plead with the examination, officers or teachers and say, please, I had a situation, than trying to risk it all. And then you risk it all, you're going to be alive for the next few years, but you would keep looking at the picture of your son. It's painful, to be honest.
Very sad.
Yeah, and still on wake-up conversations, EFCC hands over 753 recovered housing units. Wow, that's a huge number to ministry.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, these are the houses that were linked to the embattled CBN governor, former CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele. When Nigerians did see the properties, luxury as they termed it, because of the way it was constructed, Nigerians kept wondering, does 753 recovered luxurious or luxury houses belong to one man? And the argument went on social media that the truth is not being told. These entire units of houses cannot belong to only the embattled former CBN governor. There are other people who he connived with to ensure that they have these houses. It also shows how deep corruption.
He's had his day in court.
You know.
If he had accomplices, he would have named them, because I don't think it's in his best interest to take all the blame and be the fall guy. So if he thinks there are other accomplices, he should name them, let them share the blame, because this is a lot. But I wonder what the ministry will do with these houses. Probably
Well, it's simple.
auction them.
It's simple.
The houses were recovered from an unnamed top ministry. We don't know. Do we know for sure that it was the ambassador?
The houses were what? Recovered from?
An unnamed
Yes,
top ministry official. That was when the story first broke. That was what they were calling an unnamed.
Yeah, but later it was linked to. Don't forget that it was linked to that, but later it was revealed that it belonged to the
Godwin
embattled, because
Anyway.
even now the funny thing about this story, let me just highlight this, is that even the embattled former CBN governor took this case to court and said they should release the houses to him.
So he's claimed ownership.
Can you imagine that?
Anyway, so the houses were linked to
So
the
can you
former
imagine
CBN
that?
governor, Godwin Emefiele. EFCC has recovered the house and handed the house over to the Ministry of Housing, which we think is a positive step in the right direction. You know, when the EFCC does well, we should applaud them. When they act out of order, we should be able to call them to order. It's a positive step in the right direction to show transparency that they are not sharing the houses among their family and friends. You know how Nigerians always have trust deficit. There's
Serious
a
trust
huge
deficit.
trust deficit.
They
Whenever
could
we
start
hear
saying that EFCC
Abacha
is using it for short legs
or Airbnb.
Airbnb.
When we hear that
would just stay in
looted
an
funds
EFCC
have been
Airbnb.
recovered, everybody is subconsciously expecting that these looted funds that have been recovered are relooted. So this is a show of integrity on the part of the EFCC that, look, we are not interested in using this for any
And
fraudulent.
this is not the end. We
don't
also need
know
to
yet,
follow
though.
up with the
With
ministry.
the ministry. Now, it is
we
said-
on Breakfast Central will follow up.
It is said that this
We'll
house
follow
was
up.
sold to Nigerians. And we do have a housing problem
Thank
in
you.
the country. So I think 753 units of duplexes, flats, and the likes will do a great world of good to be able to combat the housing deficit You know, housing in Abuja is ridiculously expensive. I'm hoping they can catch somebody that has like another 753 duplexes in Lagos,
Yes,
so that they
use
can
to
help
fix
us
the housing
to
deficit
fix
in
our own
the
housing
country.
deficit here.
But it's a good one. It's a very good one. I mean, handing it over, hoping that the ministry would use the opportunity to revamp it quickly, work on it, and then have a press release where they invite the journalists, members of the press to say, listen, these were houses that were forfeited, and therefore we've revamped them, we're putting them out to Nigeria.
And the bidding process should be open. It shouldn't be a
Yeah,
situation
exactly,
where
that it's
everybody's using their
in-house.
uncle or their auntie or their niece. I mean, look at that vast property.
Or it's sold at a ridiculously cheap
Cheap
price
price
for...
No, it should be sold at a cheaper price, right?
Would you say sold? I think it should be put out for rent.
No, no.
But
I
they're
think
ridiculously
I think
big.
Nigerians should be given the chance to own these properties, right? People who would typically not be able to afford it. There are people who have worked all their lives
After all,
serving
it's
this
taxpayers'
country.
money.
But would you
Right?
have
It's taxpayers' money
any
after all.
qualms buying property that you know that it was built off the proceeds of corruption?
Well, the justice in there is that it has been gotten by the federal government and then has been repurposed. So that is the justice.
As a man of integrity, I think I might be having a little bit of nightmare. I can't stay in
So
such
if
a
they
house.
sell those houses to you at an affordable rate, you will not buy.
50K, I won't buy.
50K.
Yes.
I know,
Emmanuel.
because later you call them back.
And
I'm
principal.
sorry. I did not mean it.
Anyway, kudos to the EFCC. But now the responsibility is on the Ministry of Housing to be able to ensure that there is clarity regarding what happens to these houses, because Nigerians will ask questions. Nigerians will hold you accountable if after a while we don't hear anything about these houses. We're hoping that there will be free, fair, and equitable mode of distribution or opportunity to sell, transparency when it comes to selling these properties to Nigerians. So well done, EFCC.
Absolutely.
Over to you, Ministry of Housing.
Absolutely. Well done. Well done to the EFCC and the Kunduz.
I was waiting for that. Okay, moving away from wake-up conversations, we now head to our top stories to let you know what's happening this morning on Breakfast Central. This morning on Breakfast Central, one-on-one with Governor Zulum. Professor Zulum will be joining us to talk about insecurity in Borno State. Budget confirms fresh 6.93 trillion naira padding in 2025 budget. And Warri South stakeholders object to INEC's delineation. We'll be looking at that as well. National Assembly pension, fine proceeds, scale second reading in Senate. That's two bills that have been passed or that are scaling readings. And we'll be reviewing the newspaper front pages as we do every morning. Join us.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Stakeholders in Warri are raising serious objections to the Independent National Electoral Commission ward delineation process. INEC recently clarified that the process of delineating wards in Warri North, Warri South, and Warri Southwest local government areas is still ongoing and no final decisions have been reached.
However, stakeholders are objecting to what they perceive as ethnic bias and irregularities in the proposed delineation of registration areas by INEC in Warri South local government area. They argue that the ongoing registration areas disproportionately favor the Urubu and Ijo ethnic groups while marginalizing the Ishakiri people, which includes concerns over alleged non-contiguous groupings, creation of fictitious communities, manipulation of voting strength, and violations of INEC's own guidelines. This morning, we're joined by Hon Emiko Odin Etuwewe, the immediate past speaker of the legislative arm of Warri South West local government area. Honorable Etuwewe, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So where do we stand? You've been here. I think we've had two conversations about this subject matter. There's been hope that stakeholders have been coming together and having meetings. Would you say that there's been adequate representation? Bring us up to speed as to where we are.
Okay, thank you very much. To give a current update, I think we've only been having tensions all over, and that has led to invitations from the NSA inviting all stakeholders, the Shekiris, the Ijos, and the Urubus to Abuja, which of course I think a day before yesterday, on Monday precisely, there was a meeting with the NSA.
Okay, what was the meeting about?
Is to ensure that there's security the security tension is doused.
How bad is the security tension in Delta State now?
It's amazingly, growing daily, growing by the day.
As a result of this word delineation exercise?
Yes.
So can you tell us what were the takeaways from the meeting with the National Security Advisor? Was any communique issued? And was that meeting successfully in dousing any tension on ground?
The NSA meeting, I cannot be precise with the details because I wasn't part of the delegates. But the chairman of the Warri South Local Government Council has banned every form of protests for the now. So Warri is kind of calm for the now. But I am not assuring. I am not assuring because especially the Shekiri people are so very, very angry at this moment. Very, very angry at this moment. Can I start?
Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Now, the Shekiri people, listen, you cannot, whoever is saying, this is Nigeria. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is not unaware of Warri as a place over time. The Warri as a place is owned by the Shekiris. We have judgments. We have land ownership judgments. You see this delineation. This delineation, according to 1999 Constitution as amended, Section 72, it allows for delineation. So we are not against delineation. 73 subsection 1 says it should be done in an interval of 10 years. Of course, it's even overdue. We have 2 years, to have that done nationally. But the court ordered for a delineation. We of course allowed it. Delineation has happened. Unfortunately, it was fraudulent. I think the order from the Supreme Court has been upheld. But the
Why do you say the exercise was fraudulent?
Yeah.
What evidence do you provide to prove this assertion?
Fraudulent, as it were, on the draft. A draft has been presented where the majority stakeholders, the owners of the lands, the people with the largest population became a minority on the draft. And then we now decided, I am here with the guideline.
What does it say?
I am here with the guideline. I'll just give you a part. Delineation, INEC delineation. You cannot delineate without people. Delineation is about population. And that population can be found from the voters' register. Now, let me give you an example. This is the guideline that INEC brought at the first stakeholders meeting to say, this is what we will use to do this exercise. Now, listen to this. Features of a polling unit. It says, a polling unit shall have a maximum of 70 registered voters.
70.
750. 750 registered voters. Are those voters supposed to, are they on the air? Of course, they're on the land. And their ownership to those lands. Polling units are on the lands. Now, this population, where will you get them? How are you able, as an INEC official, field official, how are you able to ascertain the electoral population of a place? The voters register. And thank God they stipulated it here. He said, a polling unit shall have a maximum of 750 registered voters. And these registered voters, they are on the voters register.
So the delineation exercise.
Now, let me finish. Now, you some people are saying it's a fresh delineation, which means they should bring people that exist on the air. And eventually, on the draft, we were able to capture some of those insinuations. They brought communities from Edo State, Ondo State,
and put them there in the Shekiri.
Put them in the Shekiri
land
to accumulate voters, to create wards for the Ijos.
Have you addressed this with the INEC boss?
Of course. We have done press conferences.
Yes, you've had a press conference. What's the impact? What's the result of that press conference?
The only thing we have heard from INEC was the announcement that is not the final work. It is a draft. Meanwhile, the day they came to present this draft, as claimed by INEC, the banner on the entrance to the venue was stating result of delineation, final result of delineation.
Wow.
It was when we started protesting, when they saw the tension, they released the press statement and said it is a draft.
But why are they doing this? Have you gotten it?
What's the reason? This is why we should prosecute, especially Professor Rodas Gomus. That woman should be prosecuted.
Who is she, for the benefit of those who are watching?
She's an Ijo statesman.
Okay.
Ijo stateswoman.
Okay.
She's an Ijo woman.
What's her role?
And she's the head commissioner that supersedes, oversaw the whole process.
Okay.
So what's her interest in all of this?
I just said she's an Ijo woman, and she's even one of the Ijo leaders of thought.
So basically trying to increase the Ijo numbers in order to favor the Ijo people are supposed to be secure.
Let me tell you, 1997, the Warri had 4 constituencies. It was delineated. The Ijos, as we speak, one was given to them to add to another that they have. Now they have Patani Bomadi Federal Constituency. Then from that one of the constituencies that was taken from Warri, they created a local government to them, where they now have 2 constituencies, and then they have a federal representation, which is the Brutu Federal Constituency. Now we, the Shekiris, in Warri, the Warri Federal Constituency, made up of 3 local governments, we have just 1 federal representation. Now, as it were, just like the Isokos. The Isokos have one federal representation at the Green Chambers. The Ondokwas, every ethnic nationality have
at least one.
At least one. Warri Federal Constituency, just one for the Shekiri. They are about to take, and the Ijos, these are people that came from Bayelsa.
All right. These same Ijo people that you're making reference to, and the Rubo people as well, have claimed that the Shekiri people are getting involved in political maneuvering tactics, that even if involving the president is some form of political maneuvering. What would your response to this be?
You see, it feels so disheartening hearing this. You know, these people have been, in recent time, they have been so empowered by the president. Tantita contract, as it were, surveillance, they have been so empowered. So when we heard this frivolous allegation, you know, against the presidency and his wife, the first lady, you know, it's amazing to see. And it is not new. It is not new. When you have ungrateful people, like I mentioned the first time I came here, I said the Speaker of the Delta State House of Assembly, it is out of the benevolence of the Shekiri people that he is there as a member of the State House of Assembly. He is from Bulutu. The father is the king of Ogula.
Okay.
But yet he is here. Some of them came from Bayelsa, some are from Bulutu.
So the
Shekiris, my brother, this is why the tension now, because as it were, we have nowhere else to go.
So when you were
This
highlighting this story for us, you said
marginalization.
after the protest, INEC came out and said this is a draft.
See, there is a draft.
The ward delineation exercise has not taken place yet.
I think that's for INEC to answer. Because as far as we are concerned, the judgment, the Supreme Court judgment has been upheld. But the people that perpetrated the exercise, led by Professor Rhoda Gomus, an interested party, perpetrated fraudulent exercise to favor the Ijos, who of course had negotiation with the Urobos. So as the Urobos want to exist in Warri Urban, the Ijos want to exist in Warri Urban, so the Urobos gave them some assistance so that they can support them, to have more wards in Warri South. So all of this put together was orchestrated by Professor Rhoda Gomus.
So you've written to the president and you've asked Mr. President to intervene in this crisis. What are you expecting, and what plans does your organization have to seek justice beyond the letter to the president?
Yes, these are our expectations. Our expectations are, one, we are law-abiding people, the Shekiris, and the Supreme Court has given an order. The ruling has been obeyed. We obeyed the ruling. Now we are saying, we don't know the extent these people can go, going by what we have seen now. Now, if court judgments must be obeyed, there are other court judgments in favor of the Shekiris, like the 10-ward structure in Warri. You don't build something on an illegality now. There was a judgment that INEC reversed to the 10 wards instead of the 12 wards that they unilaterally created. That has not been obeyed. So upon what structure did you delineate on? So they have to revert to that one. And if they say they didn't use the existing voter register because they were fictitious or ghost whatever there, wasn't it INEC that also conducted that delineation? Now, you really can't be, even God himself, when God was going to create the world, the Bible says, the earth was without form or void, but the Holy Spirit was upon the surface of the earth. That means there was something. God built on something, and God followed guideline. He followed guideline, otherwise he would have created the entire world on a particular day. And or better still, would have created all specs. Instead, he used different days to create different specs. But what we have here, they disregarded their own guidelines. That is to mean that something happened along the line. Under Professor.
What do you think happened?
That's conflict of interest, one.
Okay.
Two, she helped to actualize the Ijaw expansion agenda.
What is the Ijaw expansion agenda?
The Ijaw expansion agenda is to dominate, by hook or crook, everywhere you have oil facilities.
Okay, we might have to bring the president of the Ijaw Youth and possibly the Ijaw Council to balance this, because this claim, it looks while it looks very technical on camera because it's a technical conversation, we might also have to balance it with INEC as well to fully understand what the goal really is. But what is the way forward for you and the Shekiri people as we speak today?
Like I just said, we have obeyed the court ruling.
Are you going to Abuja? Are you going to Abuja to meet with the president?
I think it behooves on the president to invite.
Okay. But you've written to him.
But we have written to the president. And what was done is a shambles.
So you're asking for a fresh delineation exercise? Is that
Yes. But before you conduct a fresh delineation exercise, you must uphold all court judgments. Like the 10-word structure, reverting to the 10-word structure. That is very important. Land ownership judgments. You must obey all. That's very important.
So, calling on the president as the executive to step into where there have been judicial proclamations, don't we see there that maybe that might, I don't know how much impact you think that might have, or if that would seem fair to the general populace who would say that president is not the judiciary.
Exactly.
The judiciary has already given judgments, and there are procedures for enforcing judgments from the judiciary.
And it's
as opposed to
already
going to the president.
giving the national security advisor to speak
The
to.
judgment has been, we obeyed the judgment for a delineation. It's just unfortunate that it was, if your child is in GSS 3, crossing to SS1, when he fails, he repeats the class.
So you don't think that is argument enough that the Joe and Irobo people have when they say that they have, numerical strength and, greater population and a broader influence when it comes to controlling oil producing areas, and that should give them a greater political relevance? You don't think that
Yes, those are fallacies. We have evidence on the INEC portal 2023 election. What was Beavers for? Beavers was for authenticity, accuracy, right? Go and check and see.
All right. Honorable, thank you so much, Honorable Emiko Odin Etuwewe, for joining us this morning. We have to have a broader conversation this time with all the other stakeholders.
Yeah.
We heard from the Shakiri people. We need to hear from the Ijo, the Urubu, as well as INEC, so that we get a full picture. And if possible, we can maybe have some sort of a sit-down with everybody on the show, and we hear from every side of the divide. But ultimately, what we want to see is peace in Delta State. We want to see peace in Warri. We don't want to see the Warri South issue escalating out of control. You said that for now there's some sort of ceasefire, and we're hoping that that ceasefire agreement lasts for as long as we're able to work a way around what will seem like an
permanent
amicable
solution.
settlement
Yeah.
to everybody. Thank you
I'm
very
all
much.
for about it.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
this
you.
morning.
Thank you. All right. Anyway, let's move on to another story very quickly and tell you about NAS pension. Just yesterday, this story trickled in. The Nigerian Senate, at the resumption of plenary on Tuesday, May 20, passed two important bills. One, seeking to amend the National Assembly Pension Board Act, and another to repeal and reenact the Proceeds of Crime Act. New Central's National Assembly correspondent Seger Ibrahim brings us details from the day's sitting.
Senators file into the Red Chamber for the first legislative day of the week. Papers in hand, voices primed for yet another deliberative session on institutional reform. First is a bill seeking to amend the National Assembly Service Pension Board Act with aims to revert to the contributory pension scheme, reconstitute board membership, provide a template for gratuity, and establish a dedicated fund. Senate Leader Opeyemi Bamidele, who sponsored the bill, led the debate on its basic principles.
This amendment seeks to revert to the contributory pension scheme by ensuring a transparent and accountable system, to reintroduce gratuity payments that fairly compensate retirees for their service.
Other lawmakers also lent their voices to the bill.
It discourages corruption. Having a workable pension scheme. Once you know you have workable pension scheme, you are okay, it will help you by the time you leave. Why are you going into corruption? You won't go into corruption.
One of the best way in order to encourage civil servants to contribute their widow's mite and their best while in service is to guarantee their future.
Next up, a controversial bill seeking to repeal the Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Act and enact the Proceeds of Crime 2025 to establish an agency to manage the disposal of properties suspected to have been derived from unlawful activities. Senator Idiat Adebule, who sponsored the bill, led the debate on its basic principles.
The bill advocates that the function of the relevant agencies should stop at investigation, prosecution, and recovery of assets and properties that are proceeds of crime, while the effective holding, management, disposal of the recovery assets and properties should be discharged through an independent agency of government charged with responsibility under the Act.
Lawmakers who contributed to the bill expressed opposing views.
It's very, very unique. What it seeks to achieve is to separate all the anti-graft agencies from being the investigators, the prosecutors, and also being in custody of the proceeds of crime.
I don't think there is need for us to create an agency to manage recovery of proceeds. But the existing laws that we have should be strengthened. Where necessary, we should amend so that all proceeds of crime should not be retained by those agencies that maybe went to the courts and were able to get these either properties, monies, or what have you.
When put to a voice vote, the ayes had it, and the bill scaled second reading. It was then referred to the Senate Committee on Judiciary and Human Rights to report back in 4 weeks. In Abuja for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
Wow, interesting reports there from our National Assembly. Correspondent Sagir Ibrahim, so many things happening there. And lawyers and NGOs have been discussing the proceeds of crime bill. They've been highlighting some of those issues, and it's great to see that it's killed its second reading. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, Breakfast Central continues. Before I bring you what's coming up today on Breakfast Central, one-on-one chat with Borno State Governor, His Excellency Professor Babagana Zulum, born resident of Gobirawa community in Katsina State.
Borno State, a state known for its resilience, has faced persistent security challenges over the years. And now recent reports indicate a surge in attacks with over 300 communities exposed to insurgent threats.
The situation in Marte local government area has been described as a national emergency, with insurgents regrouping around Lake Chad and Mandara Hills.
Well, there are rising concerns following recent attacks, especially in rural communities with over 800,000 internally displaced persons, IDPs, in Borno State alone. The question on the minds of Nigerians is, what is being done to actually tackle this growing threat? Well, joining us this morning for the exclusive conversation on issues bordering on insecurity, and one who is at the forefront and putting in the efforts to combat insecurity and restore stability to the region, we have His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Zulum. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us, Your Excellency, this morning.
Morning. Thank you very much.
Well, let's start off first by saying congratulations in the sense that your efforts are indeed starting to pay off, and we want to recognize your courageous efforts in fighting insecurity. Also, not forgetting to mention Nigerian military, who have equally been at the forefront with you. It's been noted that in the past 3 days, you visited and overseen these affected areas. Can you quickly, please, give us an overview of the security situation in Borno State in respect to the recent attacks?
Thank you very much. Last 2 months ago, we held a security meeting in Borno State where the traditional rulers led by His Eminence the Shehu of Borno and others with the security agencies in Borno State held a meeting and confirmed the rising cases of insurgency in Borno State. This was duly reported to the federal government of Nigeria and indeed all other security agencies. Equal to this our own meeting, we have had series of attacks in Borno State, especially the Boko Haram and Israel have dislodged many locations in Borno State. But the most recent worrisome phenomenon is that of Marte. As I earlier said so, Marte local government, Marte is one of the local governments in Nigeria that was hitherto displaced completely by the insurgents. However, with the support of the Nigerian armed forces, we were able to resettle Marte communities about 4 years ago. Unfortunately, this community was completely dislodged few days ago, and the community have completely relocated to Dikwa, a distance of about 24 kilometers. After extensive consultations with the Nigerian military, I came to Marte, and then what we have seen in ground is very obnoxious because more than 20,000 heads of households were displaced. In terms of number of people that were displaced, it's getting to about 80,000. And this is the only local government, this is the only town that is right now standing in the entire local government area. This is our own problem. Next, New Marte was also attacked. This is another problem. And another worrisome phenomenon is also in Wulgo, where the MNJTF were completely dislodged by the ISWAF and Boko Haram members. I'm pleased to inform you that I've visited all the 3 locations, and I spent nights in all the places, and now I'm in Gala. This is my 4th day, proceeding to other LGS. This is the situation on ground as of now. But I also want to inform you that based on our own interactions with the Nigerian army, the military, the Nigerian army has taken a decisive decision, thereby relocating the GOC 70 from Maiduguri to Gala, to Dukwa. And right now, soldiers are fully back to Gambor, to Marte. And soldiers were not displaced in Ran, but they were reinforced by additional troops. On my own part, as the governor of Borno State, I complimented the efforts of the Nigerian army, of the armed forces. With the support of the armed forces, we came with about 800 to 1,000 civilian JTF hunters and vigilantes in order to complement the efforts of the Nigerian army, so that inshallah they will, complement their own efforts. This is the current situation we have in these critical locations. While in other critical locations like Isge, Yamteke, and Bita, that were attacked by the Nigerian military, the armed forces have done well. They have gone back to their destinations, and they are doing well. I believe the situation is about to be under control.
Right. Thank you, Excellency, for bringing us up to speed with regards what the situation is in these different communities. And also just to, again, acknowledge the fact that you've been visiting from Marte to Wugo. You've been visiting and even spent the night with the help of the military officers to ensure that you feel the pulse of the people. Why would you say that it was very important for you to visit these various communities? What have you learned, from the people, how they are being affected, psychologically? What have you learned in the course of these visits, and why was it very important to you and to the people that you visited and spent time in these communities?
I'm out to strengthen the resilience of the community, because the community are very important. Communities are very important in order to reduce the insecurity in the state. What I did is not only to strengthen the resilience of the community, but we mobilized our local volunteers that will support the Nigerian military. This is very important. So apart from strengthening the resilience of the community, most importantly, we move with about 1,000 civilian JTF hunters and vigilantes to support the Nigerian army. And I'm pleased to note that the Nigerian army is quite supportive of my efforts in complementing their good doings. So I spent the night in Marte. I spent a night in Ran. My actions are not in vain. I did this one first and foremost to strengthen the resilience of the community, and secondly, to complement the effort of the Nigerian army by adding some forces to what they have, so that they will also participate in the ongoing counter-insurgency operations. And the leadership is by example. I went there so that people will look at me, people will see me. I want to persuade them so that they will be on the ground. Otherwise, if we face displacements, massive displacements, the youth will be recruited by the insurgents, ISWAP and Boko Haram. So that then their numbers will increase. Time will come that we can't even fight them again because of their numbers. So displacement is not good. We must do everything possible within our reach in order to stop further displacements.
Now, Your Excellency, some security analysts have said that the reason why we have an uptick in violence in parts of Borno State is because of the controversial reintegration of ex-insurgents. What safeguards are in place to ensure that the reintegration of repentant Boko Haram members does not compromise community safety or deepen resentment among IDPs and victims?
It's not right. Within the last 2 years, about 300,000 repentant Boko Haram members and their families have surrendered. I cannot completely say that 100% of those people that have surrendered are doing the right thing. But I want to assure you that over 99% are doing well and are not participating in the ongoing terrorism. Because let me tell you one very important thing. Insurgency will never be ended by kinetic measures alone. We must ensure that the non-kinetic measures are also properly put in place. What I mean by non-kinetic measures are social, political, and economic dimensions of the crisis. Our ongoing non-kinetic measures has yielded positive results with the support of the Nigerian military. So yes, I believe among the 600,000 or more that have repented, I cannot rule out the possibility of few of them going back to the bush. And I want to also inform you that we have informants and collaborators within the Nigerian armed forces, within the politicians, and within the communities. What we shall do is to strengthen our intelligence and to deal with them ruthlessly. But the non-kinetic measures have yielded positive results, and some of them are supporting us in fighting back the insurgents. So this is very important thing that we have to commend, and I want to commend the Nigerian armed forces for the support that they have been rendering to our non-kinetic measures.
All right. I mean, you're known as one of the most hardworking governors in the north and also in Nigeria. How has this impacted heavily on the socio-economic aspect of Borno State? I mean, whether we like it or not, you have engaged in infrastructural development, healthcare, and so on and so forth. But it seems like this has impacted heavily on the growth and the progress. And can you bring us up to speed as well, how this has affected progress, especially in Borno State, especially for everyday life?
Before the year 2022, we lost about 5,000 classrooms to insurgents. We lost about 300 healthcare facilities to insurgents, and we harvested the total number of 100,000 widows and orphans. We lost about 1,600 water distribution points to insurgents. But we have almost built back better all the facilities that were destroyed. And recently what has happened has also destroyed some facilities. But the numbers are not quite high compared to what has happened before. I want to be very frank. And I want to assure you that few facilities that were destroyed can be rebuilt very soon with the support of the federal government as well as the state government. In terms of socio-economic activities, whether we like it or not, insurgency will cripple the socio-economic activities in the state. But we are coming back stronger. Borno state government has established many platforms in order to increase the means of livelihood of the people. The Bank of Industry is doing well. They have given us some certain support. The federal government under what we call the social safety network are also helping us. Borno State is also doing what it could do. The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and others are also SEMA and NEMA are also complementing our efforts. So I want to assure you that in terms of means of livelihood, we are doing better than before, and inshallah, the situations will be under control.
All right. Whilst I thank you very much for sharing with us your, the thoughts regarding how we're faring in terms of these challenges. You've just spoken to us about the socioeconomic impact, but have you also considered the psychological impact? I know you've had one-on-one with the citizens, you've spoken to them as you've been traveling around the affected communities. How has it psychologically impacted people, and are there provisions for how we can help them walk through the trauma.
In fact, people who are traumatized, this is right. But over a period of time, citizens of Borno State have built confidence and have built resilience. So within the last 10 years, what we did first and foremost is to provide enough psychosocial support to the communities under our agencies in the state, especially Agency for Sustainable Development Partnership and Humanitarian Coordination is doing very well. We are also receiving some support through non-governmental organizations that are trying to improve on the psychosocial, provide psychosocial support, while our Ministry of Health and others are also doing very well. But most importantly, my mission to all these affected areas is a morale booster that has comforted the citizens. And I will not relent in my effort to go into the hinterlands, spend nights with them. Right now, this is my 4th day, and I want to assure you that I will not be back to Maiduguri until the next few days again, in order to build confidence and also provide enough psychosocial support to the communities.
Now, Your Excellency, as we speak, the presidency has often said, since this year, that governors should do more to address insecurity in their states. And one presidential aide actually challenged what governors are doing with their security vote. Having said that, would you say you're getting the necessary support from the federal government? And there's also been calls for state policing. Are you an advocate for state police?
Thank you very much. As far as Borno State government is concerned, we used to get support from the federal government. I want to most sincerely acknowledge the financial support that we are receiving from the federal government. And as far as Borno State government is concerned, I'm judiciously utilizing all the resources that is being given to Borno State government. After the recent attacks, we made a plea to the federal government and indeed the Nigerian army. Honestly speaking, they have taken some decisive measures. Right now, the GOC of 7D has relocated from Maiduguri Metropolitan to one of the affected LGS, which is Dikwa. And the brigade commander in Dikwa is now moving to Gaborungala. And all those areas that I'm visiting is with the Nigerian army. I've seen the commitment from the side of the chief of army staff, because I'm seeing numbers of army coming to the affected areas, and some equipments are also coming. I want to give them the benefit of doubt that they are doing their best. Most importantly, I also want to commend the Intelligence Committee. 2 days ago, we had a meeting, and the federal government is now trying to establish what we call forest guards. This is very important. Establishing forest guard will be a game changer. But I want to also give some early warning sign that this forest guard should be recruited from the communities within the states. Otherwise, we shouldn't get maximum benefit from this project. Secondly, I don't think even state police can do better than the forest guard now. While state police will take a very longer time to establish them, to train them, and to keep them, I'm advocating that everything should be done within the shortest possible time to establish the forest guard so that we'll face the insurgents. So I want to commend the Intelligence Committee. I want to commend the Intelligence Committee for a job well done. But I also want to commend the President because he has been doing some things in order to tackle this situation. So people, Nigerians should be patient enough so that we shall give them time. I believe with what I've said, something shall be done. And then my few advices to the government of Nigeria and federal government is that, one, we should prioritize security. Because the nexus between peace and security, peace and development, peace, security and development need not to be overemphasized. While we are doing road construction, I agree. We are building homes, I agree. But most importantly, let us prioritize security. Let both Borno state governments, national and subnational, put together enough resources on ground so that we can procure equipment. The army doesn't have the necessary equipment on ground to fight the insurgents. And I want to also inform you that right now, the insurgents are using technology to fight the soldiers on ground. A few days ago, I had a meeting with the chief of army staff. The chief of army staff said that he's looking for about 32 drones, and he will end the insurgency. He is right. Each drone is costing about $5.5 million. Why can't we put resources so that we shall buy these drones? Let us prioritize insecurity. And another issue that we shall look into is the issue of procurement of military equipment, both hardware and software. Let us remove contractocracy in the procurement of the military equipment. Let us deal directly from government to government so that we shall get value for money. Otherwise, most of the contractors, I'm not saying all, once you give them money, they will not even buy the equipment. And some of the monies are going into the torturous, bureaucratic melting pots of the ministerial systems. If we want to do right, we can put heads together and this madness will come to an end within the next 6 months. But the right thing must be done. Federal government and state government must come together. We need to prioritize security, and then we need not to politicize insecurity, which is very important. The federal government has to listen to us. We shall offer our services and advice on how possibly best we can move forward. And most importantly, the procurement process has to be looked into in such a way that the federal government will procure equipment directly from government to government, while the forest guard shall be established immediately. We shall coalesce together and look for funding, both through the government and private sector. And inshallah, all these things will come to an end.
I mean, you've talked about the federal government, and you've talked about ensuring that they, give the necessary support. I'm also aware that 19 governors, especially from the north, recently met, and conversations were to the National Assembly to hasten every legal processing or means to ensure that state policing is indeed very effective. But I want to get your view, Mr. Governor. Do you also agree that a state of emergency should be called, especially on northern states that are bedeviled by the rising spate of insecurity?
What do you mean by state of emergency?
What's your take? I'm asking, what's your take? Do you also support that a state of emergency should be called on northern states that are facing...
What do you mean by the state of emergency?
State of emergency meaning that the federal government should beam its focus on the northern states, pause on other things that are being done, and tackle insecurity headlong without pausing until it's...
Not only the northern states. I'm advocating for the entire country. So, Nigeria is one indivisible nation. I'm not saying that some areas are peaceful than others, but we have to take decisive measures in such a way that the insecurity in northern Nigeria will not spread to other parts of the country. So, but in terms of state policing, I think Borno State is one of the states in Nigeria that did not support state policing. Why? Because my thinking is that, in Nigeria we had a lot of problems. We had nepotism, tribalism, among others. And I know, because I don't want the federal government to easily equip some states so that, that this would also enhance communal clashes. People will take AK-47 guns and kill anyhow. So that is why Borno State government, I think, is the only state that has opted out in terms of establishing state policy. I'm not saying that federal government should not establish state police. If you want to establish state police, it's a very good idea. But we need time. Let us strengthen the existing federal police systems. They should be well equipped. They should be given the opportunity to carry bigger weapons. Then we shall be speaking about state police maybe in the next 4 or 5 years. But right now, the Nigerian police are ill-equipped. So let us also support the Nigerian police force, which is very important. And then establish the forest guards on time. This is a low-hanging fruit that we can work on time. But most essentially, as a governor, whatever decision that was made by my fellow colleagues, 19 states, I shall abide by their own decision because it's a forum, it's a non-partisan forum, and we must work with them. But my plea is that let's deal with this matter decisively. The president of Nigeria should listen to those that can distinguish the right and left, those that can tell him the right thing, not psychopaths, which is very important. He has the large heart to do the right thing, but he needs to understand what is happening on the ground. A few days ago, I said there's a resurgence in Borno State. And I know also commended the federal government that they are doing very well. Let us come together and then resolve this crisis. When I said this thing, some people are saying that there's no insecurity in Borno State. So, these are one of our own problems. So we should not politicize insecurity. What I said now is that I commended the Nigerian army. They are doing very well, I told you. Honestly speaking. But the president should listen to those that can tell him the right thing. And I had a meeting with the chief of army staff. He said that he doesn't want a kobo to be given to him in terms of equipment. Let the federal government deal directly with other nations so that equipment will be procured government to government. So our problems are one, psychopathy. People don't say the right thing. People are staying in their comfort zone, trying to give misinformation and miscommunications. The army knows what it takes to deal with the insurgents. The president should also listen to them. And we had a meeting with them. I've seen zeal and commitment from them as well as from the intelligence committee. This is one option. Then, secondly, we should remove bureaucracy in the procurement of military hardwares and softwares. Thirdly, both subnationals and the national government will come together, put resources, and buy the technological equipment that will end this insurgency. Then, above all, which is very important, the relationship between the national and subnational has to be strengthened in order to end the insurgency. Then the last but not the least, the non-kinetic measures. The kinetic measures alone will not end the insurgency. We must look into the social, political, and economic dimension of this crisis. Poverty, we have to address it. Good roads, infrastructure, we need it. All these things are needed in order to end the insurgency. But with what I've seen, it's not very difficult for us to deal with the situation on ground. We can work together and we can end these matters. But we need to say the right thing. We need to remove contractocracy in the system of procurement process and ensure that the federal government will buy equipment directly from other countries, which is very important. While the army and the police should be well equipped also. We have to buy these drones. If the drone is $5.5 million, why can't we buy them 30? Why can't we profit what we are doing for the next 2-3 months so that all these items shall be procured? I know a plea has been made for contributions during our last federal allocation. We all agreed that we shall converge and see Mr. President appeal to him that while all of us will put heads together so that the equipment will be procured, but we want to now also advise Mr. President that if he wants to procure equipment, let him procure the equipment based on direct approach, which is government to government, removing contractocracy. After procuring all what we need, if they need, they can release other funds. Otherwise, things will not be right. But lastly, I want to tell you that based on what I've seen on ground, I've seen commitment from the part of the federal government. I've seen commitment from the part of the Nigerian army, police, DSS, and others. All those locations that I'm going, it will never be feasible without the support of the Nigerian armed forces. We are working together. So let us give them the benefit of doubt. Nigerians should be patient and give support to the federal government and state government so that together we shall deal with these matters squarely rather than lamentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very very much, Your Excellency. I think just to get a sense, I mean, you've mentioned what the challenges are, you know, how we should eliminate the procurement process. We should refine the procurement process for equipment. We've talked about, I mean, you would agree that maybe allocation for defense isn't actually the main problem, but then we need to dig in deeper. And you've also talked about the contribution of the federal government and how they've been very supportive in helping to fight and combat insecurity in Borno State. But do we have a timeline within which we're expected to see some measure of stability, you know, and when we can safely maybe say we've been able to overcome the really hard parts?
With our renewed commitment, I think we can see light at the end of the tunnel in the next 3 months.
All right, the next 3 months. Thank you very much.
Inshallah.
And we certainly
right now, inshallah, things in Borno State will be okay.
All right. And one final question is: we always talk about insecurity from how it affects the citizens and talk about the government, the role that the government has to play. But on easy lies the head that wears the crown. How are you, Your Excellency?
You can see me now. It's not an easy task for me because I live about 4 days my comfort zone and I'm not willing to return. Yes, you know, you can. It's not easy, but leadership requires courage. Leadership requires determination. So we have about 8 million people in Borno State. I cannot risk the life of 8 million people while I'm sitting down in my comfort zone. I had a lot of advice from people that I should not go there, I should not go there. This will never be feasible, so I will go there. So if God has said that I will die, nobody can stop me from dying. So I want to assure the people of Borno State and Nigerians that we shall do everything possible to end this madness and to assure you that no stone will be left unturned in order to deal with the insecurity that we are facing now. What matters is not only the Nigerian army, not only the Nigerian armed forces, the communities are also very important in fighting back the insurgents. So we have to fight back. But what we need from the side of the federal government and Nigeria is to give us support and then give us the access so that we can go into the hinterlands and complement their efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Executive Governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Umar Zulum. Thank you for your time with us. And we certainly wish Borno people all the best. And we hope that in the next 3 months, just like you've said, that we will see positive feedback and that there will be a sense of returning to normalcy. Thank you for granting us some time today, and we look forward to speaking with you again.
Very positive. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Great conversation there with the Executive Governor of Borno State.
Very
yeah,
handsome.
It's no doubt that sometime on this program, I think sometime last year, we had mentioned when we're looking at the scorecard of every governor of each state, and it's no wonder why his name popped up at the top. Aside from the great strides in infrastructure that we've seen him put in place, we've also seen him always leading at the front. You know, it's quite different and good enough. I mean, when Olive asked the question how he was doing, he rightly said, you know, it's a leadership role. You need to take charge. And we've seen footages, we've seen videos where... First-hand reports,
not second-hand.
I mean, for a governor to come out and say, look, my community, there are about 300 towns in there, you know, there's only one left standing. For him to come out and cry for help, you must know how very pushed to the wall he must have been, how very frustrated he must have been. So I certainly can't imagine how difficult it will be. I was saying, and we were talking about this earlier, that being a governor in certain kind of states, I think poses a lot more challenge because the lives of people are literally in your hands. You know, you have to fight to be able to protect their lives. And I must really applaud him being able to go to these communities and sleep over in the communities, because what we see a number of times in Nigerian politics are people that are leading from Abuja.
They delegate.
They
give the matching order.
Exactly. I mean, local government chairmen in different parts of the country are living in Abuja, whereas you're a local government chairman of another place. So there's a disconnect. Regardless of how the challenges are, I think it sends a strong message. If you see that your governor comes and stays with you, it sends a strong message to say, look, I'm with you. You are not alone in this suffering.
Yes.
We are together.
And we also saw that
we are all the unfortunate
floods in Borno State. It was very present.
Borno people have been through so much.
So much.
So much. People of Borno State, Plateau State, they've been through so much. And I certainly think that they need all the
But they
support and all the help that they
very
can get.
important issues, like low-hanging fruits you could deal with. For example, procurement, government-to-government procurement. You would think that should have been in the works already, because middlemen have a way of adding to the final bill, and these things are not easy. They're not cheap. Security is a very expensive venture, so we need to streamline, and also there should be direct access. The governor to the president, you should be able to communicate openly to each other, talking about the challenges and what you need. It's a good thing that he had positive things to say about the Nigerian army. I mean, the will is there. The men and personnel, I mean, they're highly professional and well-trained, but sometimes they don't have the equipment they need to use to fight this insurgent. And we also need to investigate who is funding. Maybe there are external factors, because how can insurgents have sophisticated weaponry? And this is not the first time we're saying it, like drones.
Because, first of all,
Where's
a
the
number of
financing
them,
coming from?
because there's some level of kidnapping to it, where they're extorting Nigerians and taking these monies and investing. There's also, we can't move past the fact that there are terrorism financiers. Was it last year so that the UAE gave us a list? What happened with that list? What did we do about it? So there are people who have interest in destabilizing. There definitely are people who are funding them. Their money is not coming out of thin air. We need to trace those tracks. We also need to look at our porous borders, because these equipments are not, a number of them are not manufactured here. They're brought into Nigeria. How do they come into the country? They come in through our land, through our sea. How are they able to find their way through these borders? They're supposed to be borders to protect us from such things. So
and
there are a lot of
also
agencies
the
that will be implicated in
non-kinetic. It's not, you can't shoot your way out of
every situation.
Insurgency. You use the carrot and stick approach. And we've seen the non-kinetic in the sense of rehabilitation of ex-insurgents, but it should go beyond that. It should be employment, creating economic viability, restoration of normalcy. People shouldn't be living in IDP camps. I mean, what the overall, the underlying factor is security. Once the security, people can go back.
I think that's the response he gave when we asked about his thoughts on state of emergency to be declared on, areas in the north that are faced with heavy presence of insecurity.
And he said, no, the entire country you should declare state of emergency.
I took note of that. And one of the points he equally highlighted in the conversation we just had was that he made mention of the fact that, instead of hurrying and rushing to create state police, equip the police that
because you already have a federal structure, and they're complaining of lack of equipment. Now you want to go create an entirely new one.
What's the point? Equipment are they going to use in order to fight insurgency? So I like that fact. I like that point as well, that the government might have to look at. Another point he raised was talking about the president, that he shouldn't just depend on hearsay, on what people are saying.
Advisors.
Exactly, for advisors.
Say you shouldn't listen to people who don't know their left from their
exactly.
right.
And then he mentioned where people said, "Oh no, it's safe. There's nothing wrong," until you come to see the reality there.
And that's why him as a governor is taking it upon himself to go see things himself, get first-hand report, not relying on commissioners or advisors to tell him this is the situation or that. And it's the hallmark of a great leader.
Yeah, I mean, I think Governor Zulum has set a precedence or a standard that every other governor who is faced with a stiff challenge, regardless of whatever it is, be it insecurity, be it hunger, be it a natural disaster or human-caused disaster, name it, would have to equally follow through. Because what he's done now has shown that, listen, a governor can really play his role if he wants to. I mean, he highlighted the fact
challenges.
He highlighted the fact that the insecurity should not be politicized. Taking that word out of what he said and putting it in context, we've seen cases where certain things are now politicized, the things that have to do with governance, and he says no, it should be dealt with headlong. That's exactly what we've seen. Setting the standards, being there for 3 days in these communities, of course, with the help of the Nigerian army, and ensuring that firsthand he spent the night there. You know what it means for a governor to spend the night in an insecure environment, of course, with the help of the Nigerian military. But then again, it shows that, listen, I am not just going to talk the talk, I am going to walk, the talk as well. And that's exactly what we've seen. So it's been an insightful conversation. I mean, firsthand, we're not with the special assistant or the senior special assistant. Yeah. This is from the horse's mouth directly. And I like his outspokenness, saying it the way it is, talking to the presidency, talking to the federal government, talking to the
and also acknowledging where they've done well
as well.
Yeah.
Oh yes, very key, very key. Anyway, you're still watching Breakfast Central on News Central. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll tell you about a tragic situation that has equally occurred somewhere in Katsina State. And of course, don't forget, the next hour we'll also let you in on what's coming up next. We have a conversation that everyone is talking about. Budget padding again. Well, this is different from insecurity. This time it's about padding of a budget. While Nigerians are crying and shouting that the economy is becoming very tough and stifling, well, somewhere, somehow, budget has uncovered something that will shock you. Stay with us. We'll come back and give you more information on these here on Breakfast Central. Welcome back. It was a tragic situation at Gobirawa community in Dutsima local government area of Katsina State as bandits launched a brutal attack on Saturday evening, leaving a trail of death and destruction. Unlike previous raids focused on looting, this assault took a different turn as homes were burned, innocent civilians were executed, and even animals were not spared. Experts suggest this marks a shift in tactics, a psychological warfare campaign aimed at terrorizing residents into submission. Well, News Central TV visited the community, witnessing firsthand the aftermath of the brutality meted out on residents and the harrowing accounts from survivors. Our correspondent, Jamil Mabai, has more in this report.
This is where Isuhu Baba's son took his last breath, murdered by bandits inside his own home. The bloodstains on the floor are all that remain of a teacher who dedicated his life to educating children.
Sai dai inda Allah ya hukunta abu to shikenan sai a sa hannu biyu a yi hakuri a ansa.
While many villages have surrendered to the control of bandits, the people of Gobirawa community have remained resilient, with local vigilantes fiercely defending their land.
Baka ji baka sha ba abin da kai mutum ya zo ma wannan ta'addanci cikin gida. Kai Allah ya saka kaida da mutane. Karamin yaro na shi fara gari na yana baban mu ka dawo aje ba a gashe ka ba. Bu karamin matata muka haɗe da take cewa ajur Allah ya ba dawa ta ce aka zare ta ce gaba ɗaya gidajen mu an kone shi. An kone mu dabbobi duk abin da ke cikin nan na ɗakunan mu an kone shi.
But after this latest attack, which claimed 30 lives, including 5 burned alive, fear has gripped the residents as many have now fled in droves, abandoning their homes in search of safety.
If you look at, there are so many of them leaving the place. They are fighting everything, leaving, taking out everything they have, moving to other areas because they don't know when security is coming. And even after the attack, nobody came to them until the next day. And no government official, up to the time we went there, we saw nobody there. So if you look at what is happening, it looks like government have abandoned the area, have abandoned the people, and that's why they are fleeing. It's a message they are sending. They want to drive the people out of there. For what? That's their duty, the government, to find out.
For years, they fought off bandits until last Saturday. The attack was not just brutal, it was a massacre.
To da suka rugo, wani suka shigo ta nan cikin zaure su kuma suka tsallako nan katanga. Shine suka shigo gidan suka same su. Da suka same su, to da suka kunna wuta. Shi wannan na farko zai haura na wannan. Suka ganshi, suka halbe shi a waje da mutuwa. Shi ma wannan na biyu ya haura na ya fara cin wuta.
shi ma nan suka yi da kashe shi nan yi da mutuwa shi kuma wannan na uku ga inda yi da mutuwa nan iya kawunsa zuwa nan wurin ya kone nan ya mutu da halin bindiga su kuma annan wanda ke suka kone nan suka ci suka cinye nan suka cinye gaba ɗaya ba abin da ke amfani a jikinsu sun kone kurmus a gidan Yahuza ne.
Yahuza's family escaped, but 3 boys ran into his room to hide. They burned them alive.
Kaga nan katiwa ce nan suka shiga suka ɓoye amma gaba ɗaya sai da suka zo suka sa fetur suka toyo annan mutane.
12 lives lost, 12 families shattered. This wasn't just an attack. Experts say it's a psychological warfare.
They are trying to traumatize and so that nobody can stay any longer in those areas.
So this kind of aggressiveness, I've never seen it, I've never heard of it, or country. Now if it are something else, probably a religious war or tribal war or something like that, normally you see this kind of things. But when a bandit who is supposed to be looking for money, for how to just get what he wants and go back to the business, now embarks into this kind of thing, definitely there's something behind it. There's something behind this recent change in the tactics of the bandit.
For those that survive at Gobirawa community, survival has come at a cost, with homes reduced to a pile of ashes, livelihoods erased, the streets now empty, the scars will remain forever. In Katsina, reporting for News Central, I am Jamil Mabai.
Very heart-wrenching stories there. Great report from our reporter there, Jamil Agbenga. It's another one, no doubt.
I mean, still talking insecurity. There's insecurity everywhere. The government has its work cut out for it. And I mean, you can't build a society without it's the most basic need, the right to life. The government has a responsibility to protect Nigerians. But moving away from that, amidst growing concerns over recent defections, the People's Democratic Party caucus in the Senate says the party remains united and unshaken. Speaking after Tuesday's plenary, Minority Leader Abba Moro, alongside other PDP lawmakers, told journalists at the Senate Press Center that the party remains the most viable opposition in Nigeria. Moro expressed confidence in the reconciliation efforts led by former Senate President Bukola Saraki, assuring that the committee would address internal grievances and restore cohesion. He called on party members to remain committed, stressing that the PDP, despite its challenges, remains the party to beat. Other members of the caucus at the briefing included Deputy Minority Leader Ositangu, former Bayelsa Governor Senator Seriake Dixon, and several senators from across the north and south.
With the insinuations that the PDP is in shreds and at the verge of collapse, the party remains very, very strong and will continue to work stronger. The PDP is now unique to the PDP alone as other political parties, for example, the All Progressive Congress, Labour Party, and the New Nigerian People's Party, have their own shares of crisis and conflicts. And I'm assuring you that as members of the party, elected on the platform of the party, we are going to work hard with other stakeholders to ensure that PDP continues to remain the party to beat in Nigeria.
Hello, welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I am Benga Aboroa. We begin the news in West Africa and Nigeria, where the Oyo State Police Command has confirmed the tragic death of a 14-year-old boy, Vahyala T, during a joint traffic enforcement operation with OITMA on Tuesday, May 20th. According to the police, the boy was fatally shot during a high-speed chase after his father, who was allegedly driving against traffic, attempted to evade arrest along the Alakia Adigbayi Road in Egbeda local government area. A police officer trying to stop a vehicle fired a shot aimed at the tires but accidentally struck the teenager in the back seat, who was rushed to UCH in Borno, where he was declared dead. The officer involved is now in custody and the police commissioner has ordered a full investigation. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has issued a formal apology to Nigerians, especially parents and candidates, over a technical glitch that disrupted the 2025 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, UTME, affecting nearly 380,000 participants. Chairman of the House Committee on Basic Education and Examination Bodies, Oboku Oforji, expressed deep regret on behalf of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, during a news conference in Abuja. He attributed the incident to human error and urged Nigerians to forgive the examination body. He called for an independent and thorough investigation into the matter. And now to politics. Amidst growing concerns over recent defections, the People's Democratic Party caucus in the Senate says the party remains the party to beat. Speaking after Tuesday's plenary, Minority Leader Ababo, alongside other PDP lawmakers, told journalists at the Senate Press Center that the party remains the most viable opposition in Nigeria. Moro expressed confidence in the reconciliation efforts led by former Senate President Bukola Saraki, assuring that the committee would address internal grievances and restore cohesion.
The insinuations that the PDP is in shreds and at the verge of collapse, the party remains very, very strong and will continue to work stronger. The PDP is not unique to the PDP alone, as other political parties, for example, the All Progressive Congress, Labour Party, the New Nigerian People's Party, have their own shares of crisis and conflicts. And I'm assuring you that as members of the party, elected on the platform of the party, we are going to work hard with other stakeholders to ensure that PDP continues to remain the party to beat in Nigeria.
Staying in Abuja, a bill seeking the approval of over 1.2 trillion naira for capital projects in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, from the administration's statutory revenue fund account for the year 2025 has passed the second reading in the House of Representatives. The amount, which is part of the total sum of about 1.7 trillion naira proposed for the 2025 fiscal year, was passed following a motion raised by the majority leader of the House, Julius Iyonbere, and a voice vote by the majority of lawmakers during plenary. Also, the sum of about 150 billion naira, which was proposed for personnel costs, with an additional 343 billion naira earmarked for overhead costs, passed the second reading.
To move that the bill form act to authorize the issue from the Federal Capital Territory Administration's statutory revenue fund or the Federal Capital Territory Administration account, the total sum.
Former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has called for reform of the Nigerian judiciary, accusing it of widespread corruption and bias. Speaking at the Nigerian Bar Association Buhari Branch Law Week in Abuja on Monday, he claimed that many judges and lawyers have compromised their duty to deliver justice. Malam Nasir El-Rufai expressed concerns over delays in justice delivery and rulings, often perceived as influenced by external forces. He also condemned the increasing use of ex parte orders in political disputes and accused some lawyers of manipulating the judicial process for partisan gain. In North Africa, shocking developments out of Libya, where at least 58 unidentified bodies have been discovered in the capital, Tripoli. Authorities say the grim discovery was made on Monday inside a morgue refrigerator at the Abu Salim Accident Hospital. A facility is located in the densely populated Abu Salim district known as a stronghold for the stabilization support apparatus, a powerful militia group. According to a statement from Libya's Interior Ministry, the find followed a formal report from hospital staff. The area had been under the control of the SSA until last week when its leader, Abdul Ghani Kikli, widely known as Ganiwa, was killed under unclear circumstances. His death sparked a swift military defeat of the group by factions aligned with Prime Minister Abdulhamid al-Beiba and Libya's internationally recognized Government of National Unity. Monday's discovery marks the second instance of unidentified corpses found in Tripoli in recent days, raising further concerns about militia activity and accountability in the region.
BudgIT, the civic tech organization dedicated to transparency in public finance, has uncovered 11,122 projects worth a staggering 6.93 trillion naira inserted into the 2025 national budget by the National Assembly. These insertions, often referred to as budget padding, raises serious concerns about fiscal responsibility, transparency, and the integrity of Nigeria's budgeting process.
Budget analysis reveals that 238 projects valued above 5 billion naira each, totaling 2.29 trillion naira, were inserted with little justification. 984 projects worth 1.71 trillion naira were added without clear developmental properties, or you'd say priorities, and more figures revealed in their findings. But joining us to give a breakdown of these findings and figures is Group Head Research and Policy Advisory at BudgIT, Vahyala T. Kwaga joins us this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, let's start off first. When the story, broke, just a few hours ago, I would say some hours ago, it seems to have gathered mixed reactions. For some Nigerians, they were in shock. For others, it was as a result of why would this be happening now? But to authenticate what was said from BudgIT, can you take us through once again, and for clarity's sake, what really is going on with this budget from BudgIT, expose?
Thank you so much for that question. So I guess why some of the Nigerians did not really react is because this is a mainstay of the federal budget process. So you have a fiscal document that has the input of several arms of government or several components within government, mainly between the legislature and the executive. So the executive formulates the budget, sends it to the National Assembly reviews, approves, and then returns it to the president for assent. I don't know how many of us recall Buhari's now infamous statement, I think it was in 2022, when presented with the budget. He literally said, "This is not my budget." And I think that was perhaps Nigerianism at its best, where you had the truncation of a process that should be straightforward. Now, I will have to qualify this statement. The insertion of projects is unknown to law. It is not illegal, but it is unknown to law. Why I say so is because the Constitution does not specify the precise powers of the National Assembly. It does say the National Assembly can increase the budget size, and by extension, it can decrease the budget size, but it does not give the National Assembly explicit powers to insert these projects that, in many instances, are aspects of administration that should fall within local government authority or even state government authority. So in summary, I would say that from BudgIT's perspective, this is a usual practice, that started sometime after 1999 with constituency projects being put into the budget and, becoming full-blown insertions apart from the 100 billion that is earmarked for zonal intervention projects that is exclusively within the control of the National Assembly. There are several, challenges that arise from this, challenge, will I say, contracting, procurement, the tendency for abuse, but I guess we'll discuss that later in the interview.
Yeah, we certainly will discuss that, yeah.
Yes, and we have quite a lot to unpack. Just hold your thoughts for a bit. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue our conversation. Do stay with us. You're welcome back to Breakfast Central, and we still have with us the Group Head, Research and Policy Advisory at BudgIT, Vahyala T. Kwaga. Vahyala, before we went on the break, you just gave us an overview of this practice that is now popularly known as budget pardon. And you said, look, it started since the return of democracy from 1999. And I mean, they say when you keep practicing things, it becomes a habit. And this habit is here to stay. In the past, I did see a report that has to do with this budget pardon. A Lagos-based institute or organization was funding street lights in the Northwest. I mean, the irony of it is Lagos is dealing with its own street light crisis, just to show you how crazy, for lack of a better words, some of the most ridiculous things you see in this pattern. But please, can you break it down for ordinary Nigerians? We know a budget is a promise. This is what we plan to do within the next year. How many of them, of these patterns or these projects that have been inserted into the budget actually see the light of day, and what's the implementation rate? Is it something we need to be worried about?
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and great intro, by the way. When you speak these things out loud, you do actually get a sense of, really, like you said, how ridiculous and almost comical they sound, because this is very serious work. Government is serious work, but the triviality to which it is taken in Nigeria is almost absurd most times. So yes, that is a typical example of the type of things we see. Our organization has written before on the practice of allocating projects to ministries, departments, and agencies that clearly do not have the capacity nor the mandate to carry out those projects. And it is obvious why this is done. This is done by members of the National Assembly who want to corner these projects for their own purposes. I mean, I don't think I need to spell out why they do that. Why would the National Cereals Institute be constructing roads? Why would the Institute for Oceanography be constructing streetlights in some select parts of Kano State? It's nonsensical and it is absurd. But it just goes to show you the capture of the budget process by the National Assembly. And one would wonder how this would continue, where you have a president that, in many ways can ask the budget to be reviewed. Buhari could have easily said, this is not my budget, it needs to have these projects taken out. Or you simply strike them out from the budget, or you starve them of funding. And, to your question, to be fair, the capital expenditure component of the national budget tends not to be as well implemented as the recurrent component. I think the 2024 budget, from the latest information we have, which, by the way, I think is as of August 2024, the implementation rate isn't more than 50 to 60%. And that is, typical for the capital expenditure. The problem arises on two grounds. One, what is the value for money we are getting? Resources are already scarce. And if there's a competition between genuinely allocated projects for developmental purposes and projects such as, oceanography, constructing roads, there will be a problem in terms of value for money. Because how do you compare the ultimate impact of that project being done by a ministry that should not do it with one by a ministry that should do it, that is directed towards a developmental purpose. You know, these are the problems that arise when you have this type of budgeting system, and when there's a lack of control by the executive following assent. You know, this will always create concern and worry in the minds of any right-thinking Nigerian, that how is this process being hijacked, and you know, these things are still being executed. I mean, there are many instances of members of the National Assembly that actually use these projects, in quote, as their constituency projects. Now, to be clear, there is every reason why the National Assembly should be involved in the process of budgeting. There is every justification for the National Assembly, members of the National Assembly, both House and Senate, to fight for projects in their respective constituencies and zones. But this should not come at the expense of, one, national development, and two, overstepping the bounds of their own authority. These street lights, these inner city roads, these boreholes, these construction of town halls should be within the purview of the local governments or the states at best. What the National Assembly should be doing is focusing on projects that have that national flavor, that push the national developmental progress.
Can you give us examples of such projects?
Yeah, and also, whilst you're answering that, to speak to what these inflations are, you know, this 6.93 trillion is a lot of money. How and, you know, what areas did we see these inflations? How were they able to make it into the budget?
So the examples of the projects that they should be doing or that they should not be doing?
The ones they should be doing with the national flavor, yes.
Okay, so this should be informed by evidence. This should be informed by data. The National Assembly has the National Assembly Budget Research Office, NABRO. It has the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, and it can work in conjunction with the Budget Office. So the Federal Executive Council meets to, you know, present the budget proposal, and that comes as a result of rigorous work that should flow from the planning, research, and statistics departments of every single MDA in the country. So they are meant to gather quantitative and I guess sometimes qualitative data on what Nigerians need. This should be aligned with a national development plan. So you have a plan, you have statistical data that should inform the development of a budget proposal. Now, this data will be different for different regions. There will be some states that will have unusually high maternal mortality, for instance. There will be some states that will have a high number of out-of-school children. There will be some states that have, you know, serious insecurity concerns. What are the powers of the federal government regarding lawmaking? And how can that be fused with the budget process? Remember, we operate a federal structure. So that presupposes that there are different levels of government handled by different governmental entities. So these governmental entities have their scope already defined by the Constitution. So whatever the Constitution allows you to do is what you should focus on. So there should be less and less of these street lights and these boreholes, and more on, you know, interventions, you know, within the purview of the federal government, you know, that are within the exclusive legislative list, or perhaps maybe even the concurrent list, that show that this is the extent to which the National Assembly can make laws, or the National Assembly can, engage with the budget process. So I'm saying that let's demarcate where local government authority extends to, where state government authority extends to, and what the federal government can do based on the Constitution and based on the exclusive, concurrent, and residual list. You know, that's essentially what I'm saying. So to the second point about the spread.
Yeah.
So notice that, yes, a lot of the projects are going to streetlights. About over 1,000, nearly 1,500 are going to streetlights. 538 are going to boreholes. 43 are going to renovation of town halls. 32 are going to empowerment of traditional rulers, and 1,380 are going to road construction and rehabilitation. 24 are also going to security vehicles. This is not the complete list, but this is to give you a view into just how challenging and concerning this state of affairs is these are clearly things that should be done by the local government. We expect the National Assembly to put pressure, on their governors to allow local governments to have access to their funds, because it's an open secret that state governors are, I think they're even taking the federal governments to court on the joint local government account issue. They're saying that the money should still go to their accounts. Meanwhile, we have a judgment that says local governments now have financial autonomy. Perhaps if the senators, put pressure on their governors to relax that stance, let local governments have this financial autonomy, and let this development go to the grassroots by people who live in the grassroots. And we dispense with this nonsensical act of inserting these projects and direct this funding to areas where it's actually much more needed.
I remember during the tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari, and not forgetting too, in 2024, I think BudgIT had come out with a budget is a mess. And your findings were equally sent to the National Assembly, not forgetting to, you called on the, anti-graft agencies and so on. Can you tell us if there was any positivity from what happened from the last time? And now that it's been recalled again, seems like it's repeating itself again. Can you also shed more light on what processes you plan to take this time? I mean, we're going to leave the rest for Nigerians to decide what they are also going to do.
I mean, great question. I will even add that we went a step further than just the advocacy campaign, but our global director actually tried to take steps to pass a bill on constituency projects and, place a cap on them. So in other jurisdictions like the United States, for instance, there's a limit to which the National Assembly can, in quote, engage with the budget process. There are statutory limits above which a budget cannot exceed. The problem in Nigeria is that there seems to be no real limit to what the National Assembly can do. And you mentioned we engaging with anti-corruption agencies. We still are engaging with them. I would like to state very categorically that the ICPC and EFCC have been extremely helpful and have, opened their doors consistently to our organization, especially in the realm of capital projects tracking. There is immense support from the leadership of both the EFCC and the ICPC, to BudgIT and to civil society generally. And I think they should be commended for that. But for the issue of insertions, and there are challenges with the appropriation process that lie within the purview of the anti-corruption agencies, which we can talk on a little later.
All right.
But for the issue of insertions, it lands. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to ask if we know which committees or lawmakers have been responsible for these insertions, or are they still under investigation?
So I cannot recall at the moment. I know that there was a year we presented some information on the insertions that were coming from the leadership of the National Assembly, from the Senate President to the Speaker, to the Deputy Speaker, and to the Deputy Senate President. We've not done that at the moment. We're working on that document, and when we do, we'll make it public. So going back to the earlier question, the issue is that, you have this process that seems to not be very clear. And I mentioned earlier in my submission that
all right, a little network connectivity
Hello,
there.
Vahyala, are you there?
Ooh. Anyway, just like you see on the screen there, budget padding, it seems to be a continuous conversation we'd always have, year in, year out. I mean, like you also mentioned, I remember what BudgIT did last year, also looking at the graphical representation there on the screen as well. Some of these projects and some of the companies that you hear that are handling these projects, I mean, they're very tough. Are you there with us again, Vahyala?
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Please go ahead from where you stopped.
Okay. So I was about to make the point that this process needs judicial interpretation. BudgIT is calling on the Attorney General of the Federation to have the Supreme Court interpret the Constitution and give a final pronouncement on whether or not the National Assembly has powers to insert projects. Why we feel that this should be illegal is because the National Assembly is effectively nominating projects and approving them. And the last time I checked, we operate the doctrine of separation of powers. So the National Assembly is effectively carrying out two functions, the functions of the executive and the legislature, which I think is clearly a violation of the doctrine of the separation of powers. Unless we say as a country, we are not practicing separation of powers, which is fine, we can decide to do that. But as long as we are, this thing needs to be interpreted by the highest court in the land, and a final pronouncement needs to be made. There's also legislation, that speaks to this budget process and the role of the stakeholders, the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And, interestingly, in our 2025 federal government budget report, we highlighted some of these issues. One of them was the manner in which the president amended the budget in January of this year. Ordinarily, it should be done by a medium-term expenditure framework. That came out in December. The president sends a letter in January, increasing the budget by nearly 5 trillion. We believe that that also is a violation of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. But the interesting thing is that there are no penalties for violations of mandatory regulations in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And that was a deliberate move by the National Assembly when it was passing that law in the first place. The law had all its penalties, removed. And what you have is simply just a law that mandates but does not provide a punishment. So our entire fiscal, public financial management regulations, from the Constitution to existing laws, need, to be another look needs to be taken at them, and this is the job of the National Assembly, and this just needs to be taken much more seriously.
Now, Vahyala, before we wrap up our conversation, just as we begin to wrap up, let's take a holistic overview at our budgeting process. How much of it is informed by research and data? Because what we often get is regurgitation, copy and paste, and then increase in figures. Do they really, the budgeting office, do they put deep thoughts into these allocations and why they had these figures for X or Y project?
I wish this wasn't the last question. I wish we had so much more time, because you've picked a bone that I love so much. There's no evidence that the budget is informed by data or evidence. It's not clear to me. It hasn't been clear to me ever. And this is highly problematic because, like I said, the budget should be informed by actual data that comes from the planning, research, and statistics departments of each MDA. But a lot of these departments do not carry out their functions because governance and government in Nigeria isn't really informed by rigorous use of data. And, this stands to reason as we have numerous data collection agencies. But the black box of how the budget office comes up with its budget proposal is still not clear. Now, it claims that it goes to the MDAs and they submit their proposals and they have their bilateral discussions. But when you open the budget, what problem are you trying to solve? A budget is an aspirational document. It's technically just a wish because it should hang on something much more coherent, which is a national plan. The national plan should set the goals. The budget should be the operation by which those goals are to be met. The national plan should phase or sequence a reduction in a certain state of affairs. Government should be about problem solving. A reduction in security, okay, how much do we need to spend on security formations and operations? How can we tell when this goal has been achieved? Then you come into the monitoring and evaluation process. What is the M&E process like in Nigeria? The Buhari administration at the Federal Executive Council level, came up with a very, very nice document called the National Monitoring and Evaluation Framework. Unfortunately, it does not have the backing of any law. So MDAs are free, to ignore it if they want to. And the National Assembly, that is mandated with the constitutional right to oversight the implementation of the budget. What do we hear about oversight visits? We hear, very, very unpleasant things about those oversight visits. And how does that tie into the actual M&E process? How can the National Assembly hold the executive to account and say, by half year 2025, you promised to reduce the number of out-of-school children? Has that been done based off of the amount of money that has been released? And finally, the audit process, the value for money. You claim you want to reduce neonatal mortality. You budgeted 100 million, you spent 50 million. Has that money been spent well? Did we get value for money? Was the process followed? So you see, there are several components of the budget process that simply are taken with an amount of levity that, blows my mind, for want of a more formal statement. And these are institutional checks that need to be made as robust as possible, because the Nigerian who is going to his farm does not have any sense of connection with the budget or with national development, which is why you have low voter turnout, which is why you have high levels of succession. And, you have a National Assembly wanting to mandate voting and criminalize non-voting. Nigerians do not see the dividends of democracy because the various components of the budget process are simply not performing their functions. We could speak on this all day, but really sure. these are.
Absolutely. I mean, there's also the voting process, which has continued to be a cause for worry. The nays and the ayes have it, and then, of course, it progresses to the next, especially in today's modern technological world, if we put it that way. I want to say thank you so much for joining us, Vahyala T, Kwaga, for speaking with us on these issues. Hopefully, we would get to hear the reaction and see what the National Assembly will do, and the anti-graft agencies as well. Hopefully, they would swing into action, or it's going to be business as usual. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Let's bring to you Which Way in Nigeria, which is up next.
Nigeria's lawmakers want to make voting compulsory. Miss an election, 100,000 naira, or go to prison for 6 months. Yes, in a country where voting often feels like a gamble, they want to punish you for not playing. Let's be honest, this isn't about accountability. It's not about INEC reform. It's about blame shifting. In 2023, voter turnout was just 27%, the lowest since 1999. Why? Because people don't trust the system. Simple. We spent 355 billion naira in those elections, and still polls opened late. Over 13 million PVCs were never collected. Voters were attacked. Some found their names missing. Others watched their votes disappear into courtrooms and back in servers. And the solution? Find the people, jail the people, criminalize disengagement. Let's get this straight. Democracy thrives on trust, not force. If people don't vote, it's not always apathy. Sometimes it's a statement, this system has failed me. Yes, Australia has compulsory voting, but they also have working institutions, reliable infrastructure, and elections that actually reflect the people's will. You can't copy Australia's law and ignore Nigeria's chaos. Here, elections are often decided by judges, not by ballots. Governors are declared winners months after the vote, though rulings the public barely understands. So why would citizens trust that their votes count? If lawmakers truly want better turnout, fix the violence, fix INEC, fix the courts, fix yourselves. Ask why they're staying away in the first place, because today, not voting isn't just indifference. It's a protest. It's self-preservation. And the message is clear. Fix it, restore trust, and until democracy works for the people, you cannot force the people to work for democracy. Good morning, Nigerians.
me.
Before 2027 elections, if you're not on work duties, I advise you guys to, I will buy iodine for you, so that marker. So you can show police, because I don't want my colleague to go to jail. So you just show that thing is going to be so expensive during that period.
Wow.
Show your hand. Oh, you already have. This is green.
So this is
purple.
That's both of you. That's the plan. I really don't get it. Let's take a look at the Punch newspapers. Let's just run through the papers before we run out of the studio.
Yeah, let's punch them.
Yeah, let's see the headlines.
Yes, let's just run through the headers. Dollar outflow for fuel imports surge by 119%. You did hear that the oil marketers are fighting Dangote. We also hear about that, though. Anyway, federal panel submits key report on census funding. States to draft new framework for LG autonomy. It's been back and forth and taking so much time.
Yeah, they need to enforce this thing.
Judicial Council protest as Oyo Assembly backtracks. The big one on the front page there, May 29, Tinubu to review ministers' scorecards. Is he going to let anyone go again and replace some of them?
Wait and see.
Federal government to auction 753 duplexes seized from Emefiele. Immigration mobilizes joint task force against terror threats. Missing Lagos banker's corpse found in morgue. Very sad. And OPS folds MPC over 27.5% interest rates. That's all from the Punch. I guess Benga is doing a Daily Independent. Hopefully.
Yes, let's look at the Daily Independent. Reps vow to identify UTME glitch culprits and take action, says crisis due to human error, not technical glitch. South's leaders planning to endorse Tinubu for second term. That's from Dave Umahi. We were not elected to fight the executive, says Akpabio. Akpabio fires back at critics of the National Assembly that have referred to it as a rubber stamp. They said, look, we might be a National Assembly, but it doesn't mean that we should always disagree with the central government in Abuja. MPC retains a rate at 27.5, 50% on FX market stability. PMS price drops. Joe, we'll talk after this. You're the one that knows that petrol station that sells the cheapest, and I don't want to give them free publicity, so I want to know the current going rate. Yes. Tinubu forest guards, catalyst for food sufficiency, says experts. I mean, is there food in the forest? The forest is different from farmland, so I wonder what sort of expert this is. But what do I know? Governor Mba tasked FG on Enugu's 13% all revenue share and protests rock Federal Ministry of Finance over unpaid allowances and emoluments. Olive, a whole Ministry of Finance that they're the money people, they are owing unpaid allowances and emoluments.
I'll make sure I do something about
as my learned colleague, can you break down salary, wages, and emoluments for me? What's the difference? Educate us. I like that word, emolument. It looks like it will be bulky.
I can help you out.
Can we talk to HR? I need to start earning emoluments.
I delegate that answer to Johan.
To answer that question, let's check out this day newspaper. Please. There's no time.
On the front page of this day newspaper, let's quickly run through the stories as much as we can. Idris, Tinubu's reforms initially triggered hardship, now yielding measurable outcomes. Putting OT in bound the spot, Umahi claims all Southeast governors are supporting Tinubu for 2027. PDP caucus in region formerly represents Ude Okoye for National Secretary, threatens to pull out if rejected. At the top, we also have here, Udewa insists forces behind Iron will not be bigger than them. Deputy National Chair promises party will discuss their resolution and submit it to NEC. One party still waxing strong. Senators.
Our party,
still waxing
strong where?
I don't really know which party and you know what they are looking at here. Anyway, maybe it's the PDP they are talking about.
Absolutely, it's the PDP. Yeah, it's the press.
I don't know which
conference.
of the PDPs, whether it's the PDP at the federal level or PDP at the state level.
Okay, I get you.
They are saying is really strong because
which one?
What we are saying is not really translating to what the newspaper is reporting. CBN retains MPR at 27.50% amid inflation moderation. Improved macroeconomic threshold says decline in crude oil prices pose new challenges for budget implementation. And Time names Aliko Dangote among world's top 100 philanthropists. I need to go and ask him for
No, you are not in the position. You are doing well.
Who tell you
It's
that
not
don't need help?
it's not
Please
people
don't
like you
try
that don't
and-
that
and
need help. But my dream in life is to make it to this list of 100 philanthropies. I love to give. It's nice to give and share. Jesus Christ, I live the life of service and giving. The problem is that I'm not having that kind of money right now.
Yeah, I mean, and one day, we are not there yet, but one day, it go better, like a certain
Amen.
song said. So
Joe, are you also a budding philanthropist? Is this something you're looking to
he's
do
not
in the
into
future?
such.
He's not,
You know, he's not really into. He's very frugal with his finances.
It's a
They
family
don't care
man.
about
Just face
all those things.
just me and my family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We've given enough of ourselves today in terms of discussing some of the biggest political stories, and we're back again to continue doing this tomorrow, Thursday
Yes, we will be back to do our work and end our emoluments at the end of the day. And I'm going to Google emolument.
I should ask Casey, what's the meaning of emolument?
But I need him to tell me.
You know, great tell us.
Yeah, emolument means when we leave here. It means you've completed.
I was about to say something silly to define emolument because of molue inside or something like that.
I mean,
but they can go and cut it now.
Sometimes we just need to. You see, the pressure is too much.
It's getting worse.
The stories and so on and so forth. It's been a great show, and I mean, thanks to the
As
guys who have
always.
worked with us from behind the scenes, who work with us every single day. Thank you so much, guys, especially from the control room. Thank you.
And it's a very special shout out to HR. I just want to give a special shout out to HR. I don't know why, but I want to give them a special shout out.
They deserve it. Yesterday was actually HR
World
Day.
HR.
World HR
Yeah.
Day. So.
What did you get for your HR?
What did I get for my HR?
Yes.
Oh, it's not something.
It's not too late. We
My
can do it today.
religion says my left hand should not know what my right hand is giving. So ask HR. HR will tell you.
Sharp.
Yeah. All right. Enough of all this. We need to get out of the studio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
today.
guys.
I am Olive Emodi.
And I'm Benga Borough. I'll see you tomorrow.
And I'm Joe Hansen. Good morning.
Adieu.